And we are live. Welcome to another Games Talk Live. It's good to be here, everybody. I see a lot of good people in chat already, and I've got a great show lined up for you. But before I get into that, as always, I want to just shout out all my channel members for the show. And that, of course, is Hustle and Motivate, Mass Erect, The Wise Old Gamer, Tony Disney, Tony Bryant, Immortal Jedi X, Dead Time, Delilah HD, Junus Posse, or Eunice Posse. I'm not sure how you say that. I butcher that name all the time. Stormwalker 4 and Grazier. Thank you very much for being channel members. And today I have a special guest with me who you can find on his YouTube channel called Game Mess, Jeff Grubb's Game Mess. And you can find him there when he's not on Twitter upsetting a lot of fanboys or writing for GamesBeat. Yeah, Mr. Jeff Grubb is in the house. What's going on, Jeff?
Hey, not much, man. I'm happy to be here. This is fantastic. I'm really excited to talk about some video games with you.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And I with you. Before we get started, as I told you before the show, I like to do this little thing where I just break the ice with a guest, and we do this little trivia game. I like to call it 5 questions. 5 questions. All right, so this is how the game is played. I ask you 5 questions, and some of these questions may be subjective. Most are not in this case, but there is one subjective question. But as host, I have the power to say whether you were right or wrong. So do you understand the game? You understand the rules? All right.
I understand. Yeah, let's do this.
Let's do it. What is the first video game ever created?
I will say I think it's Space War. I can't remember if that's the exact name of Space War.
No. It actually says here it's Pong in 1972.
I will take issue with that, but yeah, I think some people will say it's the first like
I don't know why
for TV. Space War was made for like a weird thing at like USC, but it was definitely before Pong. But I
will definitely look into that after the show. But if I looked into this, just online, and this is basically what they've said. So until that, I will definitely. And Jeff, they're saying the mic is just a little quiet.
Yeah, just a little bit. I'll get it. Hang on. Yeah, I'm going to get in here right here and do that. All right. We should be good now.
All right. So next question. Which game is widely regarded as the worst game ever, Jeff?
Worst game ever. I feel like if you were like to Google it and you Google worst game ever, I think most people, the response people would probably get is E.T. for Atari.
That's correct. E.T. That's the one they've got. All right.
Yes.
So next question. We all know Mario started in Donkey Kong. What was his original name in that game?
His original name was Jumpman.
That is correct. Jumpman. All right. And I'm definitely going to look into that Pong one because you may be right about that. You may be right.
I can't remember what book it was. I was reading a book not too long ago about the history of video games, and the people that made Pong, like they were stealing the ideas from the people that made Space War. So, but it's been your definition. So yeah, that's fine. We'll look into it.
Exactly. We'll definitely look into that. All right. First video game. This is the first video game console with internet connectivity. Which one is it?
Oh man. Okay. The first one with internet connectivity built in, or in any sort of internet connection.
Internet connectivity built in.
I'm gonna say the Dreamcast is the first one that had it built in.
No, unfortunately, it was the Apple Pippin. In 1996.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, the Pippin.
Yeah, the Apple Pippin. Yeah, not a lot of people know about the Pippin. I didn't really even know about
one. I've never really seen one in person, but I remember that.
I never have either.
A big deal about that.
Yeah, and I watched. I saw a documentary on that Pippin not too long ago, and I was like, "Whoa! I never even knew that thing existed." But the Apple Pippin. All right, so this is the last question.
Let's do it.
If you could only have one gaming experience throughout your lifetime, what game would that be?
That's tough, but I would say the Link's Awakening for the Game Boy. And it's not just that I got to play that game and loved it as an 11-year-old or whatever, and I did. It was also that I didn't pay for the cartridge. My parents didn't pay for it. A kid stole it from a teacher, and I didn't realize it. And he gave it to me to try to get me in trouble. And the teacher's assistant who he stole it from really liked me a lot, and so she didn't care that. And I told her what happened because I'm like, some kid just gave it to me when she asked. So I got that. I played that game, and it opened my eyes to what games could be and what games really are, because it's Zelda and it's a really well-made game. And ever since then, it's just whenever I think about games, that's the first thing that comes to mind is Link's Awakening for the Game Boy.
I like that answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Yeah. Again, you got most of these right. But yeah, you don't win anything anyway on this show, except for the luxury knowing that you won on this tiny little show here. But yeah.
No, anyway, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad we did that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I like doing that. So basically, before we get into this, I just want to find out a little bit about you, Jeff. What made you get started in games journalism?
Yeah, I always liked games. I thought that growing up, I was into games so much that I started wanting to read a lot about games, even when I wasn't playing them. And it was easier to get my parents to pay for a $5 magazine than it was to get them to buy a game. So I read a lot of game magazines growing up, and that was Game Players and especially Electronic Gaming Monthly, EGM. And I thought that they did a good job, even at that time when it was pre-internet and personal brands and stuff like that. They still did a good job of building up their writers as people who I thought were cool. They all seemed very cool, and they seemed like they were having a good time. And they talked about their office and the weird things they would do, and a guy making a double or nothing bet over and over and over in Soul Calibur until he owed someone $32,000 or something like that. And I'm like, these are just cool stories about cool people interacting with games and each other. And I kind of wanted just to be among those people. And so I started looking at ways to do that, but mostly it was just hey, they have a website now, oneup.com. Go ahead and write on there. And I started writing blogs on there and started making my own friends and my own connections, and sort of slowly building up a community around me of people who had similar ideas and were going in similar directions. And so as I, was working manual labor jobs, working a Kroger warehouse or whatever, and delivering pizzas, when I was looking around as a possibility of getting into the industry, there were other people who were doing it at the same time, and they kind of gave me a boost and helped me up and said, hey, come here and help us, with this website. It's volunteer. We're not going to pay you, but we'll come and help you out. And I'm like, this is great. This is fantastic. And it was a luck, because the right people at the right time pulled me forward. And then all of a sudden I was there working with Dan Shu, who did run EGM. And when he went to VentureBeat, I kind of tagged along, and it's kind of been that ever since. So it was always about being among cool people who like video games. That's what it always was for me.
For sure. Yeah, a lot of people don't know. A younger audience may not know about those magazines that we used to read back in the day. EGMs, Nintendo Power, all these magazines we'd read. I'd read even the PC magazines, because they'd talk about games. And of course, growing up, when PCs started to get out there more, personal home computers anyway, getting online and stuff, that was pretty cool, and doing all that sort of thing. The inception of online was pretty funny, though, back in the day, because I think we played more chat rooms than anything as a kid.
Same here. I was in the AOL Nintendo chat. I still have friends from the Nintendo chat on AOL.
ICQ, remember ICQ?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. I mean, a lot of people... I wish I would have known about the vid games channel on IRC growing up, because apparently that's how everyone in the industry got their jobs originally, was they were in that channel and they all knew each other. So when someone got a job,
I didn't know that.
Exactly. That this is a lot of people that worked at EGM, and people that now run Destiny and stuff, like Luke Smith.
Wow.
They all came from this vid games channel and stuff. So it was very, very important. I always feel like I want to do a story about it, but it's kind of esoteric, so it'd be hard to figure out how to make that interesting to a wide audience. But yeah, it was chat rooms.
So I wanted to ask you, especially in today's, let's say, more sensitive culture, I'll put it that way.
Sure.
I know you're a guy who likes to joke a lot, and you joke a lot on Twitter. And how is it as a games journalist dealing with some of these sensitivity issues and stuff? Is it really hard to get around? Like, do you find yourself writing something while you're, reviewing a game even, and you have to catch yourself and say, maybe I shouldn't say this, because it might trigger some people?
Yes, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. What it does is it makes me think about what I'm going to say, like in a more difficult and contemplative way than I might have before. And what it ends up doing is usually makes what I write something that I am today more happy with what I write now, like 6 months from now, than I would be with that stuff that I wrote like years before people were like really making a big deal about. We should actually care about people's feelings, and we should be worried about like the punching up instead of punching down. And so now it's like I can kind of like riff on Jim Ryan, because Jim Ryan's a millionaire and he doesn't care what I say, and I make jokes about him, and making jokes about people with disabilities or whatever, something like that. Like, of course, why would I even want to do that? I would just feel bad about that in a couple months, and I would be like, man, that joke wasn't even that funny in the first place. Why would I even do that? So it's like, it's definitely something that I've thought about. It's definitely something that I pause way more than I used to before I tweet, which is, I know, hard to believe based on how much I tweet, but I really do. And I stop myself, and I'm almost always grateful that I do, because it's almost never am I happy when I like did something that wasn't funny, and months later I'm like, this wasn't worth it.
I just feel that nowadays certain things get looked down upon that are pretty harmless. I think I'm not really talking about the whole, talking about somebody who may have a disability or anything like that. It's just that there are some really sensitive people out there who really, it's not even a big deal with some of these jokes, let's be honest. And
I think you got to be able to be dumb. People need that room to be stupid and be able to just kind of like enjoy the silly side of games, and I think that there's room for that stuff, but I found that it's pretty easy for me to balance that stuff while also being more like, when people say they're offended, I listen. I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna listen.
I've seen people get offended by some of your jokes, and I'm like, what? Like, your jokes are harmless. Like, I find it funny. Maybe it's the age and the culture we've grown up in. It was a different time. Maybe I don't know.
I think it's a part of it for sure, but a lot of times when people are getting offended, those are people that don't have a sense of humor, and are people that are deliberately just there to make things more toxic, and they're way worse than any of the jokes we say. These are people who are just here to make other people miserable, and that's I think that's almost a different thing. And so I'm not worried about offending them, because they're not even really offended. These are just people that are.
Facts.
They just, when they're saying they're offended, that is a concern troll. They are pretending that they're concerned about this thing that you're saying, and really they just want to ruin your fun, and it's not even worth giving them that much time. Yeah.
So how's it been at GamesBeat, by the way?
It's good. We have this business model where me and Mike and Dean and Jason can kind of just do our job, do what we want to do, write about games in the ways we want to write about games, and then we have these events that sort of kind of pay the bills, and people show up to them, and they're important for people who are in the industry. And you can have a big audience like IGN, or you can have an audience of people who like are the executives at their company, and that's sort of what we do. And it makes a big difference where like we have a lot of freedom to kind of do what we want to do, and it's that's nice, that's cool. And so me and Mike can just kind of do the podcast, and Mike can write about old games, and I can write about weird stuff on Steam, and no one's told me to stop, so I'm gonna just keep doing it.
And that's, of course, the Decides podcast, right? On your show, on your channel.
GamesBeat Decides, yeah. Jeff Grubb's Game Mess. Yep, you can find it there.
Yep. Yeah, you guys check them out on that show. They're really good at what they do. It's fun. It's entertaining. I think I saw one time where Mike busted out a flute when you had to go deal with your kids, and he just played this little flute. Now. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Anyway, let's get into some E3 talk, man.
Please.
So E3 is right around the corner. I mean, I can't believe it's just a week away, really. It's crazy. It just snuck up on us, and there's so much going on right now in terms of just speculation, rumors, all that stuff. And that stuff is all fun and everything. But is there anything that you can talk to us about today that you may know that might be there?
I mean, yeah, I think a lot of the stuff has been out there, but I mean, the stuff that that I know is going to be there that I'm like most excited to see. I want to see what Omen. I want to see what like Omen looks like. Show us Omen. That sounds cool. Which is the rumored Arcane Austin game.
Okay.
That should
let me stop you, pause you there on Omen, because Omen, this speculated Arcane game, or it's not really even speculated. The cat's out the bag. They're making some kind of vampire game called Omen. It's a code name anyway. Some people are speculating that this might be a reboot of Legacy of Kain series.
I mean, it's about vampires, and they're using project name Omen, and that Blood Omen was the original name for the first Legacy of Kain or something like that. I can't remember the exact the lineage there, but yes, Blood Omen was definitely involved. And so I based on what I've seen and what I know, and it seems like they are definitely trying to suggest that. I don't know if it is actually going to officially bring that trademark and IP in, and I don't know about that. It might just be like this is like Microsoft and Arcane Austin's sort of spiritual successor to that franchise, and they will be glad that you make those connections, but they aren't going to actually make them themselves because it's someone else's IP. As far as I can remember, I think it still belongs to Square Enix. I think. If I remember, it was an Eidos game.
I would be totally excited, even if it was a remake of Legacy of Kain, the series. I've been asking for that forever. I'd like somebody to bring that out, please. If Omen isn't that, I want a remake of Legacy of Kain. That franchise was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I actually I never played it when it was first out, and I booted up the Dreamcast version on the emulator for Soul Reaver recently, and I'm like, hey, there's something here for sure.
Yeah, there definitely is, and it was not only the gameplay that was fun, but it was also the narrative. The story was really well written and well acted as well for the time. It was really ahead of its time there. So what else are you looking forward to? Like, what other games are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I want to see how people react to Halo, and I want to get like the last real good look at Psychonauts 2 before it comes out. And then from Nintendo, I'm looking forward to see what they have from like Breath of the Wild and stuff. And really anything Zelda. I kind of hope that if Breath of the Wild 2 really is coming out in 2022, it feels like it's coming out in 2022. I hope they have more Zelda this year and not just like re-releases of older games. Maybe another thing along the lines of the Link's Awakening remake that they did. Maybe they could do something along those lines. That would be great. That would be my hope. But I don't know. I'm kind of looking at my list. It's like I always try to refer to. I think we're not going to see a lot of stuff that people are hoping to see from Xbox. That's going to be like a 2023 time frame. That's like Everwild and Avowed. I would love to see those games and see what they look like now, but they're just not in a place where I think they can show them. So then it's going to be like, hey, Forza Horizon 5. What does that look like in Mexico? It's going to be a lot of games that we know about, and so and I'm looking forward to getting updates on that. But I just kind of want to be surprised at this point. I do a lot of work to ruin surprises, so it's kind of it definitely. I feel like a hypocrite being like, hey, now also surprise me. But I still want to be surprised a little bit.
I think we all do deep down. I mean, I love the surprises. I do like to hear about certain things sometimes, especially if it's a franchise or a game that I really want to see there. Right. I love hearing about that stuff, but there's sometimes when things do get spoiled though, and I watch the show and I'm like, I already knew this was coming. It's not as fun, but I'm definitely looking.
I was gonna say, I think what you want is for even when the thing is coming, at least it could still surprise you in how good it looks, or if it's going in a direction you weren't expecting. Like we've had this Project Typhoon now also teased for a long time. We know that's coming, and it's going to be at the C3. But as much as we've like heard about it, we haven't really heard much. And so this could still be a very big and surprising trailer that comes out and says, hey, this is something you should be on the lookout for. And you can get really excited about this. And here's what it is. And here's kind of what it's going to play like and what we're aiming for. All that stuff can really deliver. And it just comes down to the execution, as opposed to just the headline of this game exists, which, all things considered, that's really not actually that surprising. This game exists and it's going to do this and this, and here's what it looks like, and here's like all the reasons you should be excited. That's another thing. And if Xbox can deliver on that, I'll be very excited.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. I got a super chat here saying Jeff Grubb is music to this Halo he said Halo ASS, Halo fans' ears, I guess. So your music to his Halo fans' ears.
Halo ass Halo fans, because yeah, I remember I said that Halo is going to be like Halo ass Halo. So yes.
Oh,
yeah,
a Halo ass Halo. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I thought for some reason I was like, okay. Glad to be here. Have a great show, gentlemen. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate that. Stormwalker 4 says, much love. Lord Fonz can't stick around. He wants to stay influence free. He doesn't want to hear about all this stuff. See, there's many people out there that just don't want to be spoiled. I get it. And we're not really going to spoil things necessarily. We're just going to talk about what we feel may be there and what we want to be there, really. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Halo Infinite, we know is going to be there. Halo Infinite's going to show multiplayer is what I'm hearing. I'm sure you're hearing the same thing. Yep. It's all about that multiplayer.
Yeah, it's going to be about the multiplayer. It's going to be about a lot of shots, a montage of like what the multiplayer looks like, and the multiplayer is going to look like what Halo has always looked like, pretty much. They'll bring out the voice guy, who's going to say multi-kill or capture the flag and stuff like that. You can totally just kind of almost imagine it in your head. That's what it's going to look like. If it, there's rumors about it's going to be like there's going to show stuff like a new big team battle 2.0 mode or something like that. If they have that in the game, I don't think they're going to show it here. I don't think it's ready. I think they're going to focus on stuff that people recognize from Halo, and then they'll show some cutscenes that show off the graphics. Probably, I think that's kind of the idea here.
Yeah,
and not a lot from the campaign. I don't think.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. I hope they show something from the campaign, because if they don't, it's kind of a problem. I would say it's an issue for me. I look, because of the backlash that they got last year. After showing the campaign, they need to kind of show us that, hey, we're getting things a little bit more on the right track here. Less pop in, hopefully more detail in the lighting, that sort of thing. Because that, we know they're not going to change the art style. The art style's here to stay. That's what it is. They went back to the old original art style. And for those of us who wanted a more grittier, realistic approach, that's not happening. Not to the graphics like that, but it could still look pretty with the lighting and stuff, and it could be still be a showcase, and hopefully have great gameplay and be a fun campaign, good story. That's all I'm hoping for right now from 343. Get a good narrative going for Master Chief. That's the number one thing. We want Master Chief back, and he's back, so it's going to be fun. I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think you're right to say, like, if they don't show a lot from the campaign, it'll be disappointing. And I think that's kind of where the game is still kind of going to be at, right, coming out of E3, where people are going to have concerns. And I think the reality is just that 343 knows people will have those concerns, but doesn't want to take the time to try to put something together when they could just be working on the game instead. It seems like that they want to put those people on active development to get the game launched, as opposed to creating a thing that they could show at E3 instead. That would just take time and resources away from the main goal of actually shipping the game this year. Yeah,
definitely. What else? I heard you talking a little bit about the possibility of Elden Ring maybe showing this year. What's the hope for that?
So Microsoft really wanted to get Elden Ring, which is the latest game from the Souls developers from Software, being published by Bandai Namco. Microsoft was talking to Bandai Namco for a long time, trying to lock down a co-marketing deal, which basically would have been like Microsoft gives money to Bandai Namco. Bandai Namco hands over a trailer, then Microsoft gets to show that in E3. Microsoft really wanted that, but in the end, Bandai Namco it said no to that deal. And as part of saying no, they are kind of backing Elden Ring out of E3 entirely, and instead going with it seems like Summer Game Fest and Jeff Keighley. And so I think Jeff Keighley's got it, and he's going to show it. And that should be probably Thursday, I think. If not at Thursday, there'll be some other point during the Summer Game Fest thing where he'll show it. But I will say that Jeff Keighley definitely has it.
And as a gamer, that's all I care about, is just to see these games anyway. I don't care who has it on their stage. I just want to see these games. So
and I think
that should be a fun show too. Yeah, that should be a fun show too. What else do you think Keighley should be showing on his stage? Some good stuff.
Yeah, it's a good question. I haven't heard too much else, but it seems like he's getting pretty excited about what he has. I think that I think there could be some more stuff from Bandai Namco. I think he might have a few things from maybe like Capcom or something. I can't remember what his full list looked like, but I know the big one for him was Elden Ring, and so once he got that, he's like, okay, I got like the tent pole, and everything else should just kind of fall into place. But people that or companies that don't have stuff to show at E3, or if they're not having like their own presence at E3, they have options. They could go with Jeff Keighley, or they could go with Microsoft. And some companies have decided to go with Microsoft, and we should see some like third party stuff there. And so that I don't know how much that leaves for Jeff Keighley. So I'm actually curious to see what that's going to look like, and what else he will have there. I'm coming up blank.
Yeah. I know that we're going to see Battlefield 6 in a couple of days here. There's already been some leaks on that. Supposedly the name 2042, futuristic warfare. I was hoping for a more modern day warfare, not futuristic again, or at least, I just want a modern day Battlefield again. But it could be a great game. We'll have to see about that. But you think there's any truth to those leaks?
Yeah, I bet it's. Yeah. I think that's probably true. I bet it ends up feeling more modern than like sci-fi future. I bet it's like 2042, but like very much just like that just gives them license to use like the next generation of military tech that's like being developed now, and so they can have some fun with that stuff. And I think that's the goal. I think it's going to end up feeling basically like a modern combat game. And then that's a game that we'll see that on the 9th. They already announced that, and then we'll see it again at Xbox's show, so they'll have that there.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in Xbox showing it. I know they have marketing rights or whatever, but it'll be interesting to see there, because I have a prediction that they might announce this going into Game Pass. I think Microsoft may have spent the money to do so, and that I know nothing, I've heard nothing, but I feel like that may happen, and if it does, that would be huge.
I think that's possible. I know that they are. I think they're having those conversations. That seems very likely.
I'm sure.
And I think everybody involved might consider it to be a pretty good idea. I do know that those big deals for Game Pass get signed pretty late in the process. I said this a couple times this week, but like the Outriders one, that we heard about that like a week or two before it launched, and it got signed a week before that. So I think there's a strong possibility that sort of timeline could have become accelerated as companies see something like Outriders do really well. They become more confident in signing those deals earlier, but I still think that there's a good chance that we'll see Battlefield here. It'll be the co-marketing deal. But it won't. They won't announce Game Pass because they just haven't agreed to that yet. They might have to get much closer to launch before everyone feels comfortable actually signing those papers.
Gotcha. Gaming Forte in the chat with the super chat says, showing the love to the best voice on YouTube. Congratulations on all your success. Love the content creator you have become. Plus, hi, Mr. Grubb. High five.
Hi, Forte.
Yeah, Forte is a good guy. And thanks to the General C for becoming a channel member. I appreciate you very much. So what kind of surprises would you like to see on any stage this E3?
Yeah, I would like to see. I'd be very surprised if Metroid Prime 4 showed up at Nintendo. That would be very surprising and a very nice surprise. I think it's unlikely, but I would love to see that. I would love to see.
Pause real quick. Fun fact about that: I bought 2 Switches. One of them, we bought initially, and I wanted it just for Metroid, and the splash screen came up, and everybody went nuts, and then we heard nothing.
Yeah, they restarted development. It was a mess, it sounds like, but I hope that it's closer than anyone realizes or thinks or something like that. I doubt it, but that's my hope. And then I would love to see like a Konami show up at the Nintendo thing to talk about some like 2D Castlevania games, get some of those Igavania games on there, a package of like the Game Boy Advance and DS Castlevania games would be fantastic. But then like just let someone make a new one of those as well. Make this a Metroidvania show. They're probably gonna have that 2D Metroid game. To have another 2D Castlevania game to go right along with it, that would be really fantastic for me. I love Metroidvania, so that would be excellent. But any sort of homage paid to that franchise would be great for me, because I miss those games quite a lot. And then and then yeah, I don't know. And then I just want something out of left field, something I never would have expected, something I can't even think of from anyone. Just that like really gets my brain going. I remember like, you know, the final product was, you know, whatever when it launched. It's a pretty good game now, but like No Man's Sky when it first got announced, it was just like, oh man, this came out of nowhere. I never would have expected a game like this. I kind of want to feel that way again, and you know, hopefully, you know, it gets seen through launch to be a much better game at launch than No Man's Sky was, which I thought was a fine game, but it did not live up to expectations. But whatever, I still want to get excited coming out of the C3 about. Man, yeah, there was some great stuff that we knew about, but there was this one thing that everyone's talking about. No one can get over it, and yeah, that's kind of what I want. Although I also just kind of want Starfield to be that as well. Like we know Starfield, but I just want Starfield to blow me away because I'm such a Skyrim fan. I would love that.
Oh, me too. I'm a big Bethesda fan. When it comes to their single player RPGs, I'm there. Like all the Elder Scrolls. The Fallouts, you know, even Fallout 4 got a lot of flack, but I still loved it. I put 259 hours into that game. And, you know, I even spent a lot of time just building shelters and stuff. You really didn't have to in the game, but I did because I wanted to do some cool stuff and I wanted to build some bridges and stuff. And I was doing that and it was pretty awesome. So like, I really want to see what this Starfield's all about. And when that drops, because we are going to see something from it. That's a definite. It definitely will be shown. How much of it, we just don't know. We're hearing a lot of things that it might show some gameplay. Others are saying it won't. But I feel like they will show some gameplay. I think it's closer than some people make it out to be, or not. You know, some people are saying it's not that. It's not close to
like
being
very
done.
Early. And
it's not. That's not the case. Especially even if it comes out at the end of 2022, that still tells me it's not that early.
Right. Yes. And they're going to show CG trailer and then. I doubt it's going to be like a controller in hand, someone on stage playing the game in front of people, or like an uncut gameplay demonstration where like you just show us a section of the game. But I think there will be snippets of gameplay, and we'll see what the game actually looks like to play.
You know, I'm hoping that Todd Howard is there and he kind of does a little bit of a deep dive, even if it's 10 minutes.
Right. I would like talk about the systems and show those systems in action. That would be great. Yes,
that's what I want to see too. Brigadier's Blue for $2 says, need a Gex, the Gecko Revival. I remember that game. Gex. That was on the Panasonic 3DO, I think.
I think originally, yeah. Gex ended up in a lot of places in the end, but yeah, I remember he needed to be on the 3DO because he needed to be able to like talk a lot. I think that's one of his things. He had a lot of catchphrases. The worst $700 I spent on a console ever. It didn't have that much going for the 3DO for sure. It was my Samurai Showdown machine. That's what I used it for, fighting games. It was excellent as a 2D fighter machine. But yeah, it's, you know, this is a year I think that Microsoft, I think that they would benefit a lot to really have a great show this year, because right now it seems like we're seeing a lot in the news right now with Sony kind of making little blunders here and there. And right now, the whole thing about Jim Ryan, was it a lie? Wasn't it? I personally feel that, you know, it was a lie, that basically they were saying that they believed in generations, and it came out right after all the backlash for Xbox. And, you know, he said what he said, and he made people, he implied that they weren't going to put PS5 games on the PS4. And it just made a lot of people feel some type of way now that they're putting even God of War on PS4. First of all, what's your thoughts on that? Like, how do you feel about that? Yeah. I mean, I think that I am not as heated about this as some people. I've already sort of like aired my grievances, I guess you could say, with Jim Ryan and my story not too long ago that got a lot of people upset at me. But basically, like, Jim Ryan is what he is. He is someone who has made a lot of money for his company, and he seems to feel very comfortable with just saying whatever he wants. And I think he thinks gamers are pretty gullible, and that's probably not a great thing to feel if you're in charge of one of these companies. But if you keep making a lot of great games and you keep making your company a lot of money, it doesn't matter what you think about gamers, honestly. But the gamers will care, and it's the kind of thing where I think that we pay a lot of attention to what these people say, and we try to read into what they're saying at all times to be like, what does this mean when I go to spend $500 on a PlayStation 5? I kind of want to have a good idea in my head of like what the next 5 to 7 years for that system is going to look like. So when I buy it with the assumption that what you're telling me is true about what these games are going to be like when they come out and scoped for PS5, basically, I'm going to feel a little deceived when I find out that's not the case. And the reasons you're doing that aren't necessarily because it's what's best for me as a gamer. It's what maybe is best for you. It's hard, like even kind of that's unclear. Is this best for PlayStation? You guys just making sure that you are going to maintain your momentum? Are you just deathly afraid of selling slightly fewer games this year than you did last year? And you're like, what, afraid of what investors might do? Is that what this is all about?
Yeah.
That's kind of your problem and not our problem. Why are we kind of feeling like we're the ones kind of on the butt end of this? But at the same time, I have a PS5, I have an Xbox, I have a PC. Yep. These games will come out, and if they're good, I'll play them, and if they're bad, whatever, I'll ignore them. And that's kind of like how it is for me. Like the exclusivity things, games coming to PC, games being cross-generational. I think a lot of that stuff is not as important as like giving developers a lot of time and money. That's the biggest factor.
Preach.
It's just the biggest thing. Like people talk about PS4 or Xbox Series S holding things back, and the thing that really holds games back is having enough time and money. That is like really they can do so much with this hardware now, and PlayStation tends to give their developers a lot of time and money to make games pretty good. So I have I'm not too worried about stuff like God of War. I think Gran Turismo 7 was the weirdest one because I just can't imagine someone wanting to play Gran Turismo 7 in 2023 when it will probably come out on a PlayStation 4. It's supposed to be like a technical showcase for the system, so why are we even doing this? But well, okay, so if you look at just based on a graphical level, you look at a game like Miles Morales that was both on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. It looks incredible on the PlayStation 5. There's no doubt. Yep. So you're right about time and money and development teams. Some of these teams can create amazing things, even if they're just using old assets. It doesn't matter. They can push that envelope. But you're right about the scope and size of some of these games or some of the game design. You can't really push that envelope, which is what I wanted to see with these consoles. And it was fine when, Phil was more transparent, in my opinion, about the whole cross-gen thing. I was still kind of bummed about it, but I wasn't up in arms. I never was, because I know cross-generational gaming happens, but at least they were transparent, but they got crucified by a lot of journalists. Yeah, I mean, Jim Ryan definitely let Xbox take the heat on that, right? But I mean, it's not like he's not taking heat now. So it's like, I don't know, like, was it really like a 3D chess sort of like master move? I don't know. I mean, people bought a lot of PlayStation 5s, and that momentum's not going to go anywhere now. So if it was about preserving the prestigious nature of what PlayStation feels like through those first couple of months, and that required lying to people when they ask you directly about this stuff, again, I guess that kind of sucks, but I don't know. In the end, I don't think it's going to matter too much when we sit down to play most of these games.
No, God of War is going to look phenomenal.
Right, you're gonna maybe you sit down and like, man, I wonder what it could have been if it was only on PS5. Yeah. But then I think the angel on the other shoulder should be like, probably not that much different, because these developers are really good and they've got a lot of time and money, and they did what they could with this, and that was always going to be the limiting factor.
Yeah, just look at Horizon Forbidden West. My God, that thing looks incredible. That game is just unbelievable. Can't wait. Said though,
I do think maybe Ratchet and Clank does look better, so maybe there is something. It's always gonna pop up, these PlayStation 5 exclusive games. If Ratchet and Clank like continues to look like the best looking game on PS5 for like quite some time, maybe that is something that people come back to and say, hey, maybe you guys should have just been making this for the PS5. But we don't know that's going to be the case. Yep.
I said the same thing when I saw Ratchet and Clank. I said, this game looks like the most next gen thing I've seen so far, and it's not even close.
Not even close.
So, yeah, I'm excited for that too. But getting back to E3, Microsoft has the power here, or the balls in their court, so to speak, to actually benefit a lot from this E3. I'm hoping they really come out with some stuff that we were unaware of. I hope they come out with some news. I'm hearing things behind the scenes of an acquisition from a not so big studio, but a pretty big enough studio to catch some, raise some eyebrows. For sure.
Yeah. I think that's possible. I think that stuff is unlikely for E3 just because, there's a good chance they could have already filmed E3 this last week, and now they're editing it this week. So, if those deals aren't done yet, they probably won't show up in E3. And I think that even if they did get done in time, it probably still wasn't close enough to feel comfortable putting it in E3. But that doesn't mean we won't hear about it soon after. And I said this on the Xbox Era podcast last night when I was with them. But Microsoft has learned that they can drop those sort of news bits in between the big shows and in between big games to continue to dominate the news cycle. And it has worked really well for them. And honestly, Microsoft's going to need that. This show is probably going to be pretty solid for Microsoft. I think it's going to, if the new game announcements like Typhoon and like Omen, if they really hit and Starfield looks really great and people aren't too worried about Halo and the 343 can continue to assuage people's feelings that maybe the game won't come out this year or whatever, as long as everyone's feeling pretty good about those games, it'll be pretty solid. But they're still going to have to live with the reality where this year is probably Halo and probably Forza Horizon. And then next year is maybe Starfield and Forza Motorsport, and then maybe some other stuff, but it might just be another year that feels a lot like this year once we get through, a couple games coming out. And so really they're going to need to continue to bump up things with good news until they can get to the next E3 and really just say, Perfect Dark, Avowed, Fable, all these things that we've talked about before. Here's all the gameplay for that stuff. Here's all the things that are coming out in 2023. We still have Starfield coming out this year, probably. And so you could play that, and then you have all this stuff to look forward to. It's they really kind of have to get to that next hurdle. It sucks in many cases, and I know people don't want to hear that, but but it's still, they could still have a solid one here if Starfield really can carry things, and that's kind of what they need to rely on.
A lot of Xbox guys, they have a problem. I mean, because they've been saying wait for E3 forever now. And a lot of people, mess with them about that. But people really have to understand this. And this is just facts. The fact that they have 23 studios now and they're all working on stuff, I'd say by 2023, you're going to see stuff dropping into Game Pass at a continuous, rate. And it's going to be crazy how much content they actually deliver to Game Pass.
Right. And I know people are so tired of being told you have to wait, and I get it. And if you don't want to wait, go buy another system. I think that's fine. Totally, I would do the same thing if I was really frustrated with this. I'm not, because I have the other stuff. So that's I'm gonna speak from my perspective, where it's I'm gonna play Ratchet and Clank. I'm trolling Steam for garbage all the time. I love the garbage on Steam, and I'm fine. So I'm I've got enough to play. And then when I tune back into Game Pass and a couple things have dropped, it's oh, this is a nice surprise for me. Yeah. But if you are just on Xbox and you are just waiting for this stuff to come, and I get your frustration, there is just a reality. It's physics where these developers, they have to just do the work, and that work takes time, and no one can bend that space time to compress it in a way that would, the only way you could do that is make the games really crappy, and no one wants to do that. So it is just going to take a little bit more time. But once they hit their stride, I think from the end of 2022 onward, it's going to feel like an onslaught of nonstop big games. And that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, no, it really is. Look, I'm somebody who's always bought all the consoles. I mean, I've owned pretty much everything except for, there's a few I haven't, of course, like the Apple Pippin. I never even heard about that till recently. Neo Geo, that sort of stuff. That was way too expensive for my parents
for
to buy.
Any human.
Yeah. So but the others, ever since the Atari 2600, I've pretty much owned pretty much everything. Philips CDI was the one I passed on. But but I got all the other ones, and I've had a blast with them. I never understood this whole plastic worshiping thing. Sure, I've had my favorite consoles over the years, but it's always been about the games. And that's why I buy all the consoles, because I want to have every experience I can have that I want to experience. So I'm glad that you have that mindset as well, because it really irritates me. I know I got a guy in the chat right now who paid money to be a Sony
me around. Yeah, the Xbox murder. He followed me around. He's Starfield. I lied about Starfield being 2021 and Xbox Live being free. And I never said that Starfield would come in 2020 or that I heard that. That was always my hope and speculation. And Xbox Live is going to go free someday. It still is. It's still on the plan, and I never set a timeline. It's going to take a matter of time, but they'll get there. Xbox Live absolutely will go free completely one day. Absolutely.
It kind of reminds me of the time where me and I don't know if you know him, Randall Thor 19.
Yeah, totally.
Him and I we talk all the time. We're good friends. And back in the day, he told me that Horizon Zero Dawn was going to go to PC, and this was the year prior. And we were like, "Oh, really? Okay." He goes, "Yeah, so let's put tweets out about it." So we both did. We kept telling people, "Yeah, it's going to PC." Nobody believed us, and they're like, months would go by and they would say, where is it? It's coming, just wait. And then it finally got announced, and then we were vindicated. But yeah, for a while there, we were just like, people were throwing shoes at us online. They didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, this is someone who doesn't care about like what I actually say or who I actually am.
Or what
They create an imaginative figure of Jeff Grubb in their brain so they could attack that person. And it's like, oh, you're just stabbing some scarecrow figure that isn't actually me. Okay, whatever. Have fun with that. So,
well, what people need to realize too is you are a legit journalist who has sources as well. This is not somebody that's just, even like me here on YouTube, just making a channel and saying, hey guys, I got sources. You legit work for a company that you write for video games, and you get into contact with people within the industry, and you network, you end up having sources. That's how it goes down. I remember when I did a podcast on mixed martial arts, that's what happened with me. I would start talking to people, then I'd get interviews with fighters, network, get more fighters, that sort of thing. That's the kind of stuff that happens when you're in. So I don't, it's just crazy to me that some people will just call you out and say you're a liar because of this or that. Sometimes
if you keep paying money to do it, whatever. Sometimes give people money for it. That's fine with me.
And sometimes you hear things that never pan out, but you heard them. You know what I'm saying? And that happens too.
Yep. That Xbox Live thing, that'll pan out though. Eventually, it's still on the plan. It's still like on the docket for them to get to eventually.
Yeah. But Xbox has that chance to really do some good things this year. Unfortunately, like we said, it's going to be a wait and see thing for a lot of their first party. But what they're going to end up doing though, Jeff, is from now until they get their first parties really rolling, they're going to keep continuing to put big AAA multiplats within Game Pass. I see that happening.
Yes, they're in a spot where they got to spend a lot of money, and they're going to spend it. I think they're going to spend that money to make these things happen, and I think that's good news for people who are on Game Pass. So again, if like the exclusive things matter to you, it doesn't matter that much to me. But if it matters to you, like I get it, you're gonna have to wait a little bit. But if your whole thing is saving some money and getting a good deal and be able to play a lot of games, which is my thing, I think that's great. And I think Microsoft's gonna be forced into a situation where it has to maximize that return for people who are in Game Pass, and that will show up this fall and through 2022, and it'll be a big part of their plan.
Yeah. So what do you foresee on the EA stage? What are they doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that it'll be they'll talk again about Battlefield. They'll probably have like something to say about like a beta by that point. I wonder if we get an update on Skate. I think that's possible. But beyond that, I wonder, like, do we get something about like a Need for Speed, or is that on a break? They're gonna have all the sports games, but like, I just wonder what they'll have to say that's new. I guess there's a potential for, like, there's been some rumors that they're gonna do a collection of Dead Space games. That would probably be the time to talk about that. I think people would really appreciate kind of EA reminding everyone that, oh, we have Dead Space and we haven't forgot about it. I think that'll be pretty good. And then they have BioWare, so they'll probably talk about Dragon Age at that point. I think that's probably what their showcase looks like. And then there'll be some smaller stuff similar to It Takes Two on that level. I'm sure they'll have some EA partnership deals as well.
What's going on with Dragon Age, by the way? Like, are they going to actually? You think they'll show it?
Yeah. So they've teased it the last couple of years, right? So like the last 2 years, I think they've teased it. I think they will have something to show this year that, if not like straight up gameplay, it will at least be like setting the table. It'll be more than just like an asset, like a single asset, like rotating and like a voiceover. It'll be like something that's actually based on what they're working on. I think that it's about time for that.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I will say that I think that BioWare is actually in a pretty good place. I think everyone's feeling really good about Mass Effect Legendary Edition.
Yep.
I think people realize, hey, we have some brands here that people really love. These properties are something that we can really continue to ride into the future as long as we treat them right. So let's just treat them right, figure out what these games need, deliver on that stuff, and put people in charge who have proven that they can take these franchises and keep them going. And I think that's who's in charge at BioWare right now. It's a bunch of people who have proven that they know how to get these games out the door and make sure that they are in a good state. So I think everyone at BioWare is feeling pretty good right now.
I think this is the thing. You always have to go back to what you said earlier too. It's all about that time and money. And that's definitely what these developers need. One thing I preach a lot on my channel is the fact that there's no delay that isn't a good delay, really. Because if they really want to delay a game, it's because of reasons. There could be issues with the game or whatnot. And we always want to see the best out of these developers. I mean, look at what happened to CD Projekt Red. I mean, that was unfortunate. I still enjoyed the hell out of Cyberpunk, but it was buggy. It was a mess. I don't want to see that kind of stuff happening. Unfortunately, it seems like nowadays I'm more of a beta tester when I pay $60 for a game. Yep. So that's kind of been a bad thing. And that's why I say, let the developers have their time. Don't go out there and attack them because they're delaying games. That's just foolish, you know. Let them do their thing. Georgie in the chat said, Jeff, isn't Halo as good as Halo? Or isn't Halo as Halo good? You make it sound bad.
Listen, I think Halo Ass Halo is
it's Ass Halo?
Yeah. I think people are going... I think it's good to a certain extent. I think it's going to be pretty good for a lot of fans. It's just like, I think those fans are going to show up anyhow. And if it looked like Halo, and then you also showed other stuff to prove that, like, hey, here's how we're moving the campaign forward, or here's how we're going to appeal to, like, it's going to be a free to play game. Here's how we're going to appeal to all these new players coming in. I think that stuff would be important as well. But I will admit I've never been a Halo guy, so. If it's not appealing to me, that's status quo. So Halo Ass Halo is better than, I guess, trying to win me over and then losing the Halo fans in the process. It's way better than that. So it's not a bad thing. It's just not for me, is what you're hearing there. That's why it sounds like a bad thing coming out of my mouth. But you don't need to worry about that. If you are a Halo fan, I think you're going to be pretty happy.
Yeah, and that's the thing to Halo fans. Some of us anyway that like the original Halos back in the day under Bungie. 343 for some of us. For me, I can only speak for myself. Halo 4 and 5 weren't that good to me, and I really need them to return to form with Halo. If they don't get it right with this one, I'm going to have some problems. Like, I'm going to need to question Microsoft and say, hey, maybe you guys need to shelve it for a while or do something else, because I don't know. I just think it would be a massive failure if this game comes out and doesn't reach at least an 85 Metacritic or higher.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't disagree.
Yeah, and it sucks to even have to mention Metacritic because I hate Metacritic. I don't like how the aggregate scores and everything, how they score everything. I just don't like it. But it does matter. It does. I mean, you could look at that PlayStation report that Jim Ryan was like the author of for investors a couple weeks ago, and they had straight up Metacritic scores in there next to the games as like a big point for investors. So they think it matters, and I think investors think it matters, and I think the data probably proves it actually does matter. So I get what you're saying. Yeah, developers and publishers say it matters too, and they actually even give out bonuses for high Metacritic scores. So it's just something, that I find unappealing. Like, for me, everybody has, all these games are subjective. Okay. We all have opinions on them. You don't like Halo, so you're not necessarily going to score Halos very high, probably, It's just, it is what it is, man. I've seen people even review games of genres they don't even like.
Right. I mean, I think there's some value in that. Like, I want to know, like, is there something different this time that would win this person over and still know? And it's like, I think that's important to know. But then, like, if the publisher is basing stuff on Metacritic, it's like, I think the publisher needs to keep in mind how unfair that is. It's like that. The opinion of someone who doesn't like a genre reviewing a game is valuable to someone. The publisher, like, basing payment to human beings based on like some opinion that is valuable to someone else, but doesn't like actually reflect the quality of the game. Yeah, that's the issue.
So, okay, going back to journalism real quick, I wanted to ask you about journalism integrity when it comes to this whole question that I've seen arise on Twitter about, can you review games that you haven't beat, Jeff?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
I think in most cases, probably not in most cases. But you got I mean, I said recently, I can't even remember where, like, I might have just been at the bar with Miles last night. I hung out with Miles Dampier from Windows Central. And
Miles,
we were talking, and I'm like, I don't trust anyone who is going to like beat Skyrim and then give me that review. Like, if you just like play through Skyrim to the credits and gave me a review, that is worthless to me. That doesn't mean anything. I need to know like what happened when you went off the beaten path and tried to discover all kinds of fun stuff and tried to make your own fun and tried to create emergent stories. Was there any? That's the stuff that matters to me in that game. And so like just a straight up review is very pointless to me. But that's like, it's hard to gauge like when you should do that and when you shouldn't. And in most cases, seeing the credits is always a good sign that you've seen most of what the developer wants you to see. But even like, I think like Returnal, which it's a game I did beat before I put out the review, but even like in that case, I'm like, this is a game that you are supposed to play over and over again. I've seen credits, but I don't feel like I've even like played this game in a way that I would have played something like Hades, where even after I saw credits, I like kept playing the game over and over and over again, and I had a really deep and ongoing relationship with that game, and it changed way after the credits. But it's like with Returnal, it was like my opinion from like the first 5 hours of the game was kind of how I felt after the credits, and I didn't foresee that changing that much. But like, I guess maybe I could have tried to keep playing it like Hades and saw if that changed over time, and I don't think it would have. So it's like, it's just a case by case basis. I think in most situations, your safest bet as a critic is to see credits. And then that's for, especially if you are just scoring the game and trying to give buying advice to people. I think that's pretty safe. But if you don't, I think just be honest and be upfront with people and let them know exactly how much you did play. And then they kind of can't say anything, because then they just, they know exactly what your opinion is based on. If that's not enough for them, go read another review. There are plenty.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up Returnal, because you got blasted for your review, and you gave it a fair score. I mean,
3 out of 5. I like it. I like
it.
3
out. What is bad with 3 out of 5? The thing that's bad is because when you put it over to the Metacritic score, it changes to a 60. And everybody knows if anything gets below even a 75 these days, it's horrible. And it makes no sense to me. Yeah,
and I feel like at a certain point, that's not really my problem. I just have to like score it on our scale, and 3 out of 5 just means I like it. If it's 4 out of 5, that's me saying it's great, and it's not. Yeah. There's some issues that I think that game after a bunch of updates, it's probably going to be a 4 out of 5, but they got to get there. They got to actually do that. It's just it's one of those situations where like I put out the review and I expected people to kind of be in that same range as me, and I'm like, forgetting like I saw my complaints in a lot of other reviews, but then those scores were like 80s, because that's kind of the lowest you could do on like a 100-point scale or like a 10-point scale. People are like, I don't want to call it a bad game. That's like a 7's a bad game. But like for me, a 3 out of 5, it's like just 3 stars. 3 stars is a good game. A 3-star movie, I'm gonna go see a 3-star movie. It's like that sort of thinking. It's just kind of remembering that people don't look at your scale. They look at Metacritic, and so they're going to be in my mentions still saying I gave the game a 60 out of 100, and it's just like, okay, at a certain point I got to just ignore these people, because clearly they didn't read the review. They are just coming from they're coming from their Discord where everyone's like posting the Metacritic screenshot and saying it's a 60 out of 100. Let's go get them. And I'm like, okay, so why do I even care what these people think if they didn't read the review?
Yeah, and there's still a lot of people who can't even play Returnal. They bought it and they can't even play it. It's it just doesn't load up on their machine, or it stops at a certain point and they can't get past it. I was watching something the other day about that, and I was like, wow, it's just strange. Like I said, give these developers a lot more time, because obviously they need it, Mm-hmm. Okay, Jeff, we're about over with time here. We're about out of time. So before you go, I just want to ask you real quick, if you, based on what you've heard, based on everything that's going on, rumblings, rumors, whatever, even stuff that you may know, how do you think this E3 is going to score? If you had to put a score.
Yeah. Let's use the 3 out of 5 or the 3 out of 5, the 5-point
3 out of
scale.
5.
I probably would give it. I think it's probably gonna end up being a 3 out of 5, where I liked it, but it didn't blow me away. And I'm hoping that I get surprised. I hope it comes out of nowhere and I'm like shocked. But I think, Sony won't be there. EA's not going to happen until July. A lot of companies like Konami already kind of had something and pushed stuff out. I think a lot of companies feel like if they're not ready to show a lot, they don't have to. So why would they? We got Sony's holding back the release date for Horizon. I think we might see a lot of that sort of thing where we see a lot of stuff that just says holiday or doesn't even have a date. And so we could be in a situation where we see some cool games,
be a lot of waiting.
but we're still in this. We're going to be in this nebulous state where we're like, should I get excited for this game coming out in the next 6 months, or should I just kind of put it in the back burner so I don't get disappointed when it doesn't come out until 2022? I think we're going to be in that situation with a lot of games, and so I think there's a good chance where it's like, that was a good show, but it just wasn't great because I can only get so excited about these things when I don't really know what the reality is going to be.
Yeah, especially when you look at it, over this past year, the lockdown, everything. What a lot of people fail to realize, too, a lot of gamers do, they fail to realize that these games that are being created, especially if they have mocap involved, during that time of lockdown, there was no mocap being done. And so a lot of these games were
people's faces. They have to be uncovered, and they have to be acting next to each other and stuff. Yeah, it's just something they couldn't do. Yeah,
and it's an unfortunate thing, but hey, it's the reality. And I just think that people have to understand that, because there's some people that'll even come at me and say, wow, it doesn't seem like Sony was affected at all. And I'm like, no, Sony was affected. They were all affected. Everybody's been affected. I mean, that's why Gran Turismo got pushed back. That's why freaking, God of War got pushed back. I mean, they need more time. It's just, it is what it is. Yep. Most of these games that we saw that Sony has come out with so far, like I tell everybody, it's because these were almost done before that hit last year. These were already on their way to becoming, polished, that polishing stage and stuff. So it's just, I don't know. I just feel like people just need to relax, let these devs work, and get a good product out there for us. That's it.
And we will get some games, so we'll play those and enjoy those, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, I want to thank you for being here, man. It's been awesome. Before I get out of here, Brigadier's Blue says, great episode this week. Again, Fonz, thank you, Jeff, for coming on and sharing your thoughts on everything. Really enjoyed it all. Awesome. Yeah, I didn't want this to be really a spoiler type of cast, because I know a lot of people don't like those sort of things. But I just wanted to pick his brain and talk with Jeff, because I enjoy your content, Jeff. I follow you both on Twitter and YouTube. You're a funny guy. I get the jokes and stuff. I get, it might be the age thing. I don't know. We're both a couple of older guys. But yeah, thank you for coming on. Tell everybody where they can find you, man.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jeff Grubb. There's a link to my Discord in there. Come hang out with us in there. Jeff Grubb's Game Mess on YouTube is where we do the GamesBeat Decides podcast, and then twitch.tv/Jeff Grubb is where I do the Game Mess show live on Tuesdays. And then as other stuff happens, I do that throughout the week. So if you just follow me on Twitch, and whenever I go live, usually it's with the Game Mess show, and that's talking about the latest news and rumors and stuff, and about the schedule for E3. So I'll do one more of those this week, and then starting Thursday, it's going to be Summer Game Fest, and we're going to be in it. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be a blast, man. All right. I just want to tell everybody out there to be nice to each other and game on.